What is emotional depth in writing? It's about creating connections between the reader and your character. When your reader experiences the emotions that the character is feeling, they're more likely to stay engaged and keep reading your book. So, we have 9 tips to help you create emotional depth in your writing.
The first tip is to become emotionally intelligent. Now, that means that we as writers have to be able to identify our own emotion when we're feeling it, or sometimes even afterwards, you have to go back and analyze. But we have to be able to identify our own emotion and then express that. So when you're writing, what you want to do is figure out what emotion are you trying to convey in that scene or with that character, and then think back about a time in your life when you had that strong emotion. What did that feel like? How did you express that? How did you respond to people when you were having that emotion? And if you can capture that, that will give you the ability to really put that emotion in your writing, and people will see that. They will feel that and become more emotionally connected with your character.
You want to use relatable experiences. So think about your life and think about times where you had really strong emotion, things like love and joy and sadness. And then take those experiences that are relatable and interweave that into your character's experience.
So, for example, if your character is suffering loss, think about a time when you experienced grief and how you can use your own emotional connection with grief to infuse that emotion into your character so they have a similar response to you like you did, and that will help them come across more authentic.
Number 2 is what kind of mood or emotion do you want to create? So think about the story that you're writing. Are you writing a love story? Do you want to convey love or joy or perhaps peace? What is the emotion for the love story? Are you writing a mystery? Is the emotion revenge or anger or greed? What is the emotion for that type of story? And then what you want to do, once you've identified the emotion, you're going to vary that emotion.
Now, just like in real life, emotions are complicated and they're kind of multi-layered. So allow your character to struggle showing what that emotion is. We've all had the experience where we've been feeling something, there's that strong emotion, and we kind of dance around it. We don't come right out and say it because it takes us time to identify it. Allow your character to have that same struggle, and you'll connect with people way more, and allow them to have a variety of emotions in that process.
Whatever emotion you're trying to convey, you want to convey the emotions around that emotion because, like you've already said, we don't feel just one emotion. There's so many emotions around and surrounding every emotion.
And number 3 is dialogue is a great way to convey emotion. Now, you want to keep your character in mind when you're doing this. They could be flamboyant and talkative like me, which means they would be very expressive, or they could be a little more introverted and speak in half sentences or one-word responses. So you have to keep that in mind when you're talking about the dialogue as well.
Dialogue is a powerful tool to draw your reader in by showing the reader how real your character is. So use dialogue wisely.
Dialogue can reveal a lot about your character's emotional state, and you want to use subtext in this. So subtext is what's not said. And so there's many situations where you can use dialogue, but the things that are unspoken can make the emotion even more powerful. So keep that in mind when you're writing dialogue.
Number 4 is show, don't tell. So if your character is sad, instead of saying she was sad, show us by telling us what the actions are. What's her body language? Is she staring out the window? Are her hands shaking? Is she gasping for air? What action is happening to show that she's sad? Because it's in the action that shows it that we create emotional depth. By telling people, it's very shallow in the emotional depth. So use body language to increase the emotional depth of your writing.
So instead of telling the readers that she was mad, you should show that she was mad. And again, this goes back to the emotional intelligence aspect. But if you're struggling with how to express something like anger, then you can always look it up in the emotional thesaurus. We'll put a link to this down below.
Now, in the emotional thesaurus, here are some signs of anger: flaring nostrils, eyes that are cold, hard, or flinty, a reddening of the face, slamming doors, yelling, muscles quivering.
And number 5 is characters. Now, we all know that the characters are the heartbeat of the story. So take time to really develop the characters. They need backstory, they need the strengths, they need weaknesses, they need motivations, they need flaws. They need all of these things really so that we can see the emotional depth so that we can connect with them.
We have a video about how to do a 10-minute character sketch, which we'll put the link in the descriptions. And I encourage you to check out that video and download your template to help you really get to know your characters quickly.
Once you get to know your character really well, then you can ask the question, how do they feel in this situation?
And number 6 is create conflict. Emotional depth often arises from conflict or challenges. A story without conflict or challenge of some kind is going to be boring and will be lacking in emotional depth. So figure out what the conflict is and put your characters in a conflict or a challenge where they have to face their emotions, and that will add emotional depth.
I like to ask the question, what if everything goes wrong? And I know in real life we like everything to go smoothly, but in a story, you have to get to that place that everything goes wrong and your character is struggling to figure out how to solve that problem. That kind of struggle really drives emotional depth.
Conflict adds tension, but it also allows for growth and transformation, which goes right into number 7.
Which is develop strong character arcs. Now, this is important because your reader is going to want to see the character in the beginning state and then change throughout the story and overcome challenges and difficulties. But really what they're looking for is internal change as well as external change. When they see that change, it really draws them in and they become more emotionally connected. So in a good character arc, you're going to have a big change beginning to end, but you're also going to have small changes along the way. And don't neglect the small changes because that can really help your reader connect with this character as they progress through your character arc.
You can also make sure that your characters face the challenge of challenging their beliefs and their values. Those are great things to challenge.
If you want to learn more about character arcs and how to develop a good character arc, we've made a couple of videos about that, and they're in the description down below, so check those out.
And number 8 is sensory details. Use sensory details to add emotional depth to your writing, because we as humans experience emotions through our senses. So think about the 5 senses and then apply that to your writing.
So think about how you would feel in any given situation that your character is in, and then stop and consider how would you express that emotion or that feeling using one of your 5 senses. What does the character see? What do they hear? What do they smell? What do they taste? What do they touch? Allow that to come through in your writing.
An example of this is if your character is embarrassed, they could be visibly sweating, wincing, feet shuffling, touching their forehead, clearing their throat, or coughing.
So number 9 is filter words. These words interrupt the story and make the reader realize that they're reading rather than experiencing the story through the character.
What are filter words? Well, they are verbs that create a distance between the reader and the character in the story that's taking place. They remind the reader that they're really not experiencing this by themselves. They are just reading a story and it pulls them out of the experience. The filter word focuses on the character rather than the experience. And here are some examples of filter words: noticed, seemed, spotted, saw, realized, felt, thought, wondered, believed, knew, and decided. If you see filter words in your writing, remove them and focus on the action and what the character is experiencing rather than the character.
Remember, your goal is to connect with your reader on a personal and emotional level. So take these techniques and put them into your next project and watch your storytelling be transformed.
If you like this video, you will love this next one that's going to pop up. And we would love to hear from you. What techniques do you use to add emotional depth to your writing?